Have you ever not known what you wanted to play for a campaign, or maybe you're like me and wait until everyone else in the party has um, submitted their character before you actually start making yours? Well, with a build like the one I'm presenting today, you won't have to do any of that because this is a build that is capable of flexing and adapting to fill whatever role and whatever thing is needed for the party, pretty much all with the same build, and it really comes down to your spell and skill selections. Welcome to D&D build for 17, the Arbiter of Knowledge. My name is Nathan, and I upload these videos once a week on Saturdays or Sundays, depending on my schedule. Now, this is the first one I'm making with this kind of dark template. So if you like this better than the light template I've used before, please let me know in the comments. And if it has good reception, I'll plan on continuing to use this one going forward. So here is our agenda for this video. I'm going to kind of introduce and talk about the build concept, talk about level 1, level 2 through 6, levels 7 through 9, levels 10 through 13, and levels 14 through 17 before summarizing. And in each of our key thresholds, so level 6, level 9, level 13, and level 17, I'm going to give a tactics report and kind of talk about the tactics of this character as I would build them in a vacuum, and just kind of what they're capable of. Now, my character that I'm going to be designing is going to be primarily kind of a control type character, but I'm going to build them also to put out damage per. And if you want to see any of the other builds I potentially talk about here, or some of the numbers kind of presented in a more organized table format, there is a spreadsheet with the links to all the builds in the description of this video. And if you want to see the builds I'm specifically going to talk about, filter the build type column for control and damage. All right, so let us talk about the build concept. What does this build feature? This is going to be a flexible and versatile character who's capable of covering multiple roles both in and out of combat. This is a character that's also going to be durable, evasive, able to dish out damage, control, and support, potentially more than one of these at the same time. This character is going to be able to adapt to the needs of any party, primarily based on your spell selections. And they also have excellent tools to be the party face or the talker, as well as potentially another out of combat role or two, again, depending on how you set up your character. The books that you will need for this build, you will need the Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything for the core of the build. Now, I'm going to be using a race out of Monsters of the Multiverse, as well as a single spell out of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. So if you have those two books, you can replicate this build to its full extent, but they are by no means required to make a character like the one I'm presenting today. All right, so at level 1, we are going to be starting as a Sorcerer. And as a first level Sorcerer, we don't get proficiency with any armor. We get a pretty limited proficiency in weapons, but importantly, we get proficiency in Constitution saving throws as well as Charisma saving throws. Constitution saving throws are going to be important because this is going to be a character that's going to be concentrating on a spell, regardless of what route you take and want to pursue in terms of your party role. So having Constitution saving throws to keep those spells up is going to be very important. Now, this is not our main class, and this is the first of 2 small dips, but starting as a Sorcerer at first level does net you the Constitution saving throws. So as a first level Sorcerer, we get the Sorcerer spellcasting, and we also get our Sorcerer's Origin. For this character, I'm going to be taking the Storm Sorcerer on my build. This gives us the Wind Speaker feature, which is more basically a ribbon feature. We can speak Primordial and all of its dialects. Then we also get the Tempestuous Magic feature. And what this does is, as a bonus action, either immediately before or after casting a spell of first level or higher, we can fly up to 10 feet without provoking opportunity attacks. And throughout the course of this character's career, we're going to use this kind of as a get out of jail free card to help keep us safe. Now, for our race today, I'm going to be using the Earth Genasi once again. I used this build previously on my Stone Singer Blade Singer build that you can see up there if you'd like. And I will explain my reasons for taking this race. So the features of this race, they are you can either be a medium or small creature. I want to be a medium creature. They have a 30-foot base speed. They've got dark vision out to 60 feet, which is pretty standard for most races these days. And in terms of their features, they've got the Earthwalk feature, so you can ignore difficult terrain while you're walking on the floor or the ground. Pretty cool thing if your DM uses difficult terrain in a lot of your combats, you can kind of leverage the difficult terrain to your advantage to keep the enemies away from you. And importantly, they get the merge with stone feature. So what this does is at first level, you know the Blade Ward cantrip, which gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And you can cast it as a bonus action number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. So we can use this to enhance our durability. At character level 5, this will also give us the ability to cast the Pass Without Trace spell once per long rest without spending a spell slot, and then we can continue to cast that spell with our spell slots if we have them. And the main reasons I'm picking this race are for durability and for the ability to get that spell because I like the utility it provides with the whole party to have stealth. Other options that you could use for your race, I was pretty tempted to use the Gith Zerai race out of Monsters of the Multiverse to get access to the shield spell without potentially having to get it from Sorcerer. You could also use the Hobgoblin for bonus action enhanced help. Or honestly, you can use whatever race you want. There isn't any race that is like a mechanical keystone of this build, and you can use whatever fits the flavor of your character that you kind of imagine. For our ability scores, we're using the point buy method as always, and I'm going to get a 13 in dexterity, putting our racial +1 there, a 14 constitution, a 13 wisdom, and a 15 charisma, putting our racial +2 there. This gives you 1 point left over, so I'm going to put it in strength to increase our carrying capacity if your DM tracks that at all. As a sorcerer, we have a number of hit points at first level equal to 6 plus our constitution modifier, so that will be 8. Now, in terms of our spells, we get 4 cantrips plus the Blade Ward cantrip that we have from our race. And the ones I want are Mind Sliver, Minor Illusion, Ray of Frost, and Sword Burst. One of the things I kind of see about this character is that we're going to be carrying around a bandolier of small throwing daggers or maybe shuriken or something like that. And Sword Burst is a good kind of close range cantrip that I think kind of matches the flavor of my character and gives us a melee option. Mind Sliver is great because it targets intelligence saves and potentially can enhance your ability to land or maintain control spells thanks to the D4 penalty to saves it gives enemies once. And then Minor Illusion is great out of combat utility, and Ray of Frost is going to be our charisma-focused attack blasting kind of cantrip. We are a full caster, so we have 2 first level spell slots, and we get to know 2 spells. The spells I'm going to take are Shield and Absorb Elements. These are very powerful abjuration type spells and will help keep our character alive. Now, that said, at this level, we are very squishy, and we can't really use our tempestuous magic feature because we don't have any spells that we can cast on our turn that are first level or higher unless we provoke an opportunity attack or something. So your general tactic at first level is going to be to stay as far back as possible and blast with your cantrips. Try to keep yourself alive with shield in case a hit ever comes your way. But we'd only have an AC of 12 at this level, 10 plus our dexterity modifier. So we want to increase our durability as quickly as possible. But in the long term, these 2 spells will help a lot with that. In terms of our skills, I want to talk about this a little bit on this character because I feel like it's going to be important. One of the things that this character is going to do is going to be a skill monkey. And so you'll want to take skills that will fill the voids in your party and what your role is going to be. In a vacuum, I don't know what the other characters in your party are, so I'm just going to build one that I think would be fun and compelling. So from our class, we're going to take Persuasion and Deception, and then I'm going to use the criminal background to get proficiency in Thieves' Tools, as well as Deception and Stealth. Now, per the rules on your background, if you get a skill out of your background that you already have from your race or your class, you can replace it with one of your choice, so I'm going to get Perception here. Kind of the story I envision long-term for this character. Yes, we are a criminal, but we break into libraries to read books or potentially read and then steal magic scrolls to pay for our way of life. And throughout this background, we have been kind of training in the service of a god of knowledge and are potentially going out on our adventure with our final instruction manual about what to do to kind of fulfill our journey as a servant of this knowledge god. And even though, we had a background where we stole knowledge in the past, going forward, we might still try to go on a knowledge heist, but our goal is to maintain and build up knowledge. In terms of our starting equipment, we're using the gold buy method on this character. As a sorcerer, our average gold is going to be 75 plus 10 from our background for a total of 85, which is exactly enough to get scale mail, a shield, and a component pouch, which we can use for our spells. Now, we can't use this scale mail and the shield yet. We're not proficient with them, but we will be soon, and we want to have them so that when we are proficient with them, we can use them to try not to die. All right, at level 2, we are going to take a single level in Cleric. And story-wise, again, this is kind of the culmination of the training of that final book of instructions that we had. And as a first level Cleric, we get proficiency with light armor, medium armor, and shields. So now we can equip our armor, use our shield, and we can boost our base armor class to 18 instead of 12. We also get the Cleric's spellcasting here, and Clerics are a ritual caster. We get 3 cantrips. Make sure to take kind of support oriented cantrips that don't use your casting modifier. I would take guidance and resistance and spare the dying on my character. I think guidance and resistance are probably your core ones. Just for the third one, pick a utility cantrip. Clerics also get their divine domain here at first level. And honestly, there are a lot that could work. I think it would depend on the role that you needed to fill in your party and kind of what you wanted your character to do. Now, for my character that I'm building, I'm going to lean into that skill monkey type thing, and I'm going to pick the knowledge domain. This gives us the blessings of knowledge, so we get to learn 2 additional languages and gain proficiency and expertise in any 2 of the following 4 skills: Arcana, History, Nature, and Religion. I would take Arcana and Nature on this character. Some other domains that could potentially work well if you wanted to lean into the healer role. Life Cleric is absolutely great. If you wanted to be a little bit better at protecting the party, Light Cleric could work. Also, Order Cleric and Peace Cleric are very powerful, even with a single level dip, and could also work very well. Again, pick a divine domain that fits with the role that your character needs to have in the party. We get to prepare a total of 2 Cleric spells, 1 from our Cleric level and 1 from our Wisdom modifier. And the 2 that I would prepare are Bless and Healing Word. We're going to use Bless as our main kind of support spell at these early levels, and Healing Word is going to be our main tool to bounce allies back from being unconscious. On my character, I do not envision them being a primary healer, but having this ability to heal with a bonus action and a spell slot is something that can be very useful and can make the party more durable in general. Knowledge Clerics also get Command and Identify, always prepared. Unfortunately, Command this version of it will use our Wisdom modifier, and I actually love this spell, and we're actually going to get a Charisma-based version of it next level. So, at level 3, we are a first level Bard, and Bard is going to be our main class on this character, but I wanted to make sure I picked up our defensive spells from Sorcerer, as well as our cantrips and our Constitution saves, as well as our armor and utility out of Cleric before I went into Bard. So when you take a level in Bard, if it's not your first class, you get proficiency in a skill of your choice. I'm going to take Insight, and then you also get a proficiency with an instrument, and you can pick anything that you want, doesn't really matter. We also get Bard spellcasting, and they are once again a ritual caster. We also get the Bardic Inspiration feature. So as a bonus action, a number of times per long rest equal to our Charisma modifier, we can hand out a Bardic Inspiration dice to an ally, and it lasts for 10 minutes, and they can use it to add a bonus to a skill check, an attack roll, or a saving throw that they make, and the dice is then consumed. Overall, very powerful support feature, and this is the kind of the core thing of Bards. Due to the way that multiclassing works, we are now a 3rd level caster, so that means 2nd level spell slots, even though we only know 1st level spells. We get 2 Bard cantrips here. I would take Vicious Mockery. It's not a Bard build if you don't have this, and this can be very useful to protect an ally by debuffing the most dangerous attacking enemy. And then I would take Prestidigitation, keep my clothes clean. I think it's a fun kind of utility cantrip. And we get to know 4 Bard spells. Now, the ones I'm planning on taking on my character are Command. So we have a Charisma version of it. Healing Word, Disguise Self, and Dissonant Whispers. Now, because I'm getting Healing Word now, I would probably plan on preparing Sanctuary out of Cleric instead. But honestly, you could take, say, the Fairy Fire spell and keep the Cleric version of Healing Word. And if your table allows the Silvery Barbs spell, I would absolutely take it here if it is allowed. Perhaps you take something like Command, Disguise Self, Silvery Barbs, and Dissonant Whispers, and that kind of a thing. All right. At level 4, we are a Bard 2, so we now get Jack of all trades. This means we can add half of our proficiency bonus rounded down to any ability check that doesn't get our proficiency bonus. So importantly, this is like all of the skills that we're not proficient in, as well as initiative, because initiative is actually an ability check. We also get the Song of Rest feature, so over the course of a short rest, any ally who spends hit dice can recover an extra roll equal to this number, so it's 1d6 at this level. And we also get magical inspiration. This was a feature added out of Tasha's. This gives a couple more uses of our bardic inspiration dice for our allies. They can now add them to the damage roll of a spell they cast, or the healing of a spell they cast to heal an ally. So you can use this to further enhance the usefulness of your bardic inspiration. Also get to learn another bard spell here of first level, and I would take Thunderwave. This is a nice little AoE damage and knockback, so you can use this to push enemies off cliffs and that kind of thing, or get them off of you. And it scales okay with upcasting, so it's not a bad spell to have around, and I love the utility of having some forced movement. At level 5, we are a Bard 3, so we get expertise here. We can pick any 2 skills that we are proficient in and double our proficiency bonus with them. On this character, I'm going to take Persuasion and Perception. We also get our Bard College here, and I'm going to go with the College of Lore. So this gives us some bonus proficiencies in 3 skills. I'm going to take Survival, Investigation, and Acrobatics. You could potentially take expertise in these skills if you wanted to. And kind of the roles that I envision this character fulfilling: we are the party face, we are also the kind of know-it-all, we are good at lockpicking, we are good at stealth, and we are also good at kind of investigation and perception and kind of the out-of-combat survival stuff. Or bards also get Cutting Words. This gives us another use for our bardic inspiration. So as a reaction, when an enemy makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a damage roll within 60 feet of us, and they can hear us, we can say some mean things, and we can roll the dice and subtract it from their roll. You can potentially turn a hit into a miss, or reduce the damage done to your allies, and it's overall a very nice thing to have around. You can even use it to reduce the damage dealt to yourself. The power of our cantrips goes up as a 5th level character, and we also unlock that Pass Without Trace spell out of our race. So now we can cast this spell once for long rest without spending a spell slot, and we can cast it with any spell slots we already have. We are now up to 3rd level slots, and we get our first 2nd level spell. And I'm going to take the Heat Metal spell. This is a really cool spell in that the enemies don't get a save against it to avoid the damage. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in our tactics report after our level 6 features. At level 6, we are a Bard 4. This means that we get our first ability score increase or feat, as well as learning another cantrip, and I'm going to learn the Mage Hand cantrip here. The feat I'm going to take is a half feat called Telekinetic out of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This allows us to boost a mental stat of our choice. I'm going to boost our charisma and bump it to 18. And then we learn the Mage Hand cantrip, but if we already knew it, it enhances the range of it, I think out to a range of 90 feet. And then as a bonus action on our turn, we're going to attempt to push or pull a creature, either 5 feet directly away from us or 5 feet directly towards us. They have to make a strength save based on the ability that we increased. So that will be based on our charisma. It'll basically match our spell save DC. And if they fail, we push or pull them, and an ally can willingly fail the save. We're going to use this for some force movement, and it'll have some, just has great kind of utility overall throughout the career of this character as a useful on-demand bonus action. Also learn another Bard spell. I'm going to learn Enhance Ability. This is a really good support spell and one that I just love. You can enhance yourself or an ally, or potentially more than one ally if you upcast it. And you get to pick a single attribute, and they get advantage on all ability checks with that attribute. And you can also, if you enhance strength, dexterity, or constitution, there are some additional benefits. You can use this to enhance your abilities as the party face. You could use it to help someone move a boulder. You could even enhance an ally's dexterity, and they would get advantage on initiative checks because initiative is a dexterity skill check. Well, not skill check, it's a dexterity ability check. All right, so at level 6, it is time for our first tactics report. So what is this character capable of and what are our plans? So we have two main plans at this level. We have a support plan. So with the support plan, we're probably going to use Bless in the first round as our concentration spell. If you have Fairy Fire, you could use that as well. And then in round 2 and beyond, we're going to kind of flex as needed. And then our damage per round plan, we're going to cast upcast heat metal to level 3 on our target. I'm going to be assuming our target is wearing either metal armor or carrying a metal weapon. What this spell does is when we cast it, they take with the upcast, I'll take 3d8 fire damage, and then they have to make a Constitution saving throw. If they fail, they have to drop the item that we heated up. But if they don't drop it or can't drop it, they receive disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks while they still have it on their person. And then on future turns, we can use a bonus action to reapply the damage and force them to make the saving throw again. One of the cool things about this spell, again, is there is no save to avoid the damage, and the damage just happens. So in round 2 and beyond, we will cast our best damage cantrip, which is Ray of Frost, and then reapply the heat metal damage. Now, in terms of kind of our flex options, we have a lot of cool things that we can do. We've got Command for control. We've got Healing Word to bounce back allies. We have Sanctuary to potentially deter enemies from attacking us or one of our allies. We have Dissonant Whispers, which can force opportunity attacks if we have martial allies. We have Thunder Wave for some force movement, as well as Telekinetic. We've got our whole suite of cantrips, and as well as Cutting Words. In terms of defensive tools, we have Shield, Absorb Elements, and Silvery Barbs if allowed to protect ourselves. We also have Cutting Words to protect ourselves and our allies. We have our bonus action Blade Ward 3 times per long rest. In terms of our skill and utility tools, we have a whole host of cantrips, including Guidance and Resistance and that kind of thing, potentially even Disguise Self to infiltrate. We have Pass Without Trace to make the whole party stealthy, and we also have Enhanceability. We also have our Tempestuous Magic out of Storm Sorcerer, so we can use this potentially with our bonus action to reposition and avoid having to take the Disengage action to avoid opportunity attacks. So our Arbiter of Knowledge overall is going to be very hard to lock down and should be very durable thanks to their high AC and Abjuration spells. And you should be able to move relatively freely around the battlefield, healing, dealing damage, and applying control effects as your party needs. Now, in terms of the damage numbers of our damage per round plan, we have a +7 to hit with 2d8 cold damage from our Ray of Frost, and our heat metal does 3d8 fire damage, and there is no save, and our save DC is 15. So in terms of our overall damage against an enemy with an armor class of 10, we would do 22.5 damage per round. Against an enemy with an armor class of 15 and +5 to their saves, that would be 19.8 damage per round. And compared to my other builds at this level, this build is indeed the worst, but honestly, this damage is not too bad. And given the amount of control that this character is going to be outputting, I am okay with it here. We are not really going to be doing our increased damage per round output for a little while. So at level 7, we are going to continue in Bard. We are now a Bard 5. Our Bardic Inspiration bumps up to a D8, and we also get the Font of Inspiration feature. This is a wonderful thing. It now means that our Bardic Inspirations refreshed on a short rest as well as a long rest, so you can spam them much more freely, and you absolutely should. We also get to learn our first 3rd level Bard spell here, and I'm going to take the Slow spell. I love this spell. It's a very powerful control effect. Hypnotic Pattern is also very good, but I personally find Slow to be a little more universally applicable because if enemies are charm immune, Hypnotic Pattern doesn't work, and the Hypnotic Pattern also has a potential where if you don't, if the positioning doesn't work, you might not be able to use it or not get as many creatures because it can potentially affect your allies. Slow doesn't have any of those issues, and you can still also damage the enemies affected by it without keeping them under control, without breaking the control effect. I'm going to be using both spells on this character, but I think Slow is a little bit, I like it more, so I'm going to get it first. Level 8, we are a Bard 6, and we get the Counter Charm feature. This is one that is not very good. As an action, you can kind of play some music and make yourself and your allies within, I think, 30 feet, like immune to charm and fear effects. I've never seen this used in an actual campaign. Maybe you might use it if there's like an invisible ghost or something charming your party. If you've ever used this, please let me know. But honestly, I don't think this feature is that great. We also get the additional magical secrets feature out of Lore Bard. And what this does is it lets us pick 2 spells of 3rd level or lower from any class list, and we get to learn them. We also get to learn another 3rd level Bard spell here. I'm going to take Hypnotic Pattern, so I have both that and Slow. And I would consider retraining Heat Metal into the Aid spell to buff the hit points of our party. Now, if Heat Metal has been working well for you, I would keep it, but honestly, its usefulness kind of depends on the campaign and the kind of enemies that you fight often. Now, for our magical secret spells, on this character, I'm going to take Spirit Guardians and Counterspell. So with Spirit Guardians, this is a fantastic area of effect damage per round spell, also applies a bit of a slow effect, and can kind of make us into a little bit of a knockoff cleric, and that's something that I just love, even though we're a bard with the full suite of bard skills and bard control spells. And Counterspell is just a great thing to protect the party and potentially shut down enemy casters. Now, I wanted to list some other good magical secrets options. If you are leaning more into that healer role, having Aura of Vitality, especially for out of combat healing, is very powerful. And if your party needed a little bit more of an AoE blaster, you cannot go wrong with Fireball. At level 9, we are a Bard 7. This means we now have access to 4th level spells and 5th level slots due to the nature of our multiclass. Now, there are 2 4th level spells I want. These are Confusion and Routhalim Psychic Lance. Routhalim Psychic Lance is a really cool damage plus debuff spell that comes out of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Target's intelligence does a bunch of psychic damage, and if they fail their save, in addition to taking the damage, they are incapacitated for a round. Super powerful, and I love the fact that you can blast and control, and it doesn't require your concentration. I personally like the Confusion spell better than Hypnotic Pattern, so I would consider retraining Hypnotic Pattern at this level to one of those 2 spells. But honestly, you could potentially say retrain your Healing Word and prepare it out of Cleric, or just keep Hypnotic Pattern and Slow. But again, pick the spells that you like that fit the role that is needed at your table for your character. So, at level 9, it is time for our next tactics report, and what has changed since last time? Well, we've gained Font of Inspiration, so we can spam our Bardic Inspirations, which are now a D8. We've gained our additional magical secrets in Spirit Guardians and Counterspell, and we have 5th level spell slots as well as 3rd and 4th level spells. So, there are now potentially 3 different plans that we have. We can do the support plan with Bless, we can do the control plan with either Confusion or Slow, or we can do a damage per round plan with Spirit Guardians and Telekinetic. The important thing with Spirit Guardians is that although you can't walk it onto enemies and deal damage like you can in Baldur's Gate 3, that's not how it works in tabletop. You can trigger the damage by using force movement to force a creature into the area on your turn. So when we cast the spell, we could potentially position ourselves so an enemy is right outside it, and then use our telekinetic pull to bring them into the area, and that will trigger the damage. Then they will take the damage again at the start of their turn if they start their turn in it. And if they pass their save against your pull, just walk the area onto them so they take the damage at the start of their turn. Obviously, we will use all of our non-concentration spells as needed, and we have a whole suite of them that are quite effective. In terms of our defensive tools, we've gained Counterspell, and we can now spam Cutting Words thanks to Font of Inspiration, and we can cast our bonus action Blade Ward 4 times per long rest. In terms of skill and utility tools, we've added Aid to bolster the hit points of our party, and we have Font of Inspiration to spam those Bardic Inspiration dice. So our damage per round plan is to cast our Spirit Guardian spell at the maximum level that we can, so level 5 for 5d8 of radiant damage per tick, and then we'll use our Telekinetic to shove our target into our area of effect. In round 2 and beyond, we're going to cast Ray of Frost and then use our Telekinetic to shove our enemy into the area. I'm assuming that you're doing a little bit of dancing here to bounce the enemy in and out of the area, and we can continue to use our non-concentration spells as needed. In a real game, an enemy might actually approach you, so you might need to use, say, your Sword Burst cantrip or something else, and then maybe provoke an opportunity attack, or use your tempestuous magic, or use like a thunder wave to push them out of the area and then pull them back in. One of the cool things, though, is if you use Ray of Frost on them, it reduces their movement speed by 10 feet, and then the Spirit Guardians area costs double movement for enemies, so you can really slow down and lock down enemies potentially in this area. In terms of our damage numbers, we have a +8 to hit, dealing 2d8 cold with Ray of Frost. Our spell save DC is 16, and our Spirit Guardian says 5d8 of radiant damage, which is potentially doubled if the telekinetic pull is successful. So, against an enemy with an armor class of 10 and no bonus to their saves, we would do 43.5 damage per round. And against an enemy with an armor class of 16 and +6 to their saves, it would be 29.9. And since last time, this is a 93% increase against the low armor class and a 51% increase against the higher armor class. And honestly, I like this increase here. We also potentially have some area of effect damage per round with Spirit Guardians. Now, compared to our other builds, we are still pretty much in last place, although we are starting to pass some of the weaker ones against the lower armor classes. But against the higher armor classes and higher saves, we are not doing the best. But honestly, again, I'm still okay with this, given the fact that this character can potentially support and control and do damage all at the same time. All right, at level 10, we are a Bard 8, and we get our next ability score increase our feat, and we're going to bump our Charisma to 20 and cap it, which also gives us another use of Bardic Inspiration. So we're now up to 5 per short or long rest. We also get another 4th level spell here, and I would take Polymorph. You can pick whatever you want, but the ability to turn yourself or an ally into a giant ape and save them and give them a whole bunch of hit points is very powerful, and I think it's a great kind of utility and support spell to have in our back pocket. Now, of course, this is a concentration spell, so you'll have to keep yourself safe and at distance to save an ally. But overall, I think this is a really powerful spell and a good thing to have around. At level 11, we are Bard 9, so the power of our Song of Rest increases to a D8, and then the power of our cantrips also goes up here. Also get to learn our first 5th level spells here. And so I would consider retraining our Dissonant Whisper spell at this level and picking up the following 2 5th level spells. The first one is Synaptic Static. This is basically a psychic fireball, targets intelligence saves, and has a similar kind of incapacitation type effect as Ralathim's Psychic Lance. Great blasting plus control spell and a wonderful tool to have, especially because it doesn't require concentration. Speaking of concentration, we now have our bread and butter damage per round concentration spell, Animate Objects. What this spell does is it animates it. We're going to use it to animate a bunch of tiny objects which will fly around and attack our enemies. Because this character, as I said, is going to be carrying potentially a bandolier of throwing knives or daggers or shuriken or something, I imagine us throwing out a handful of these and then casting the spell and having them shred our enemies. Incredibly powerful damage per round spell. The damage it does potentially isn't magical. Talk to your DM about this spell when you get it. And if your DM says, oh yeah, you can buy a bunch of magic daggers and animate them and then the damage is magical, like absolutely do that. But our general plan is we're going to use Animate Objects if the enemy is not resistant to non-magical damage, and we'll use Spirit Guardians if they are. At level 12, we are a Bard 10. This means we get expertise in 2 more skills. I would take Investigation and Deception on my character, but again, take expertise in the skills that your party needs for your role. We also get another cantrip here. I would take the Message cantrip on my character just for some extra utility, but pick your favorite utility cantrip here. We also get another round of magical secrets of 5th level or lower this time, and this is a core Bard feature. The size of our Bardic Inspiration dice is now bumped up to a D10. Now, the magical secrets I want to take, you could honestly take whatever you want, and there are a whole lot of really good ones, but I want Find Greater Steed. This lets you potentially get something like a griffin to ride around. This is a concentration-free summon, and you can cast it on a prior day, and it'll stick around even after you refresh your spell slots. It also has a pretty cool feature where if you cast a spell while mounted on the steed that targets only yourself, you can also target the steed. So there's some interesting combos you can do with buff spells here. I'm not going to be planning on using any of those on this character, but by having this spell, we can basically fly by riding our griffin, and he supplies a nice extra body in combat. I'm also going to take the Tasha's Mind Whip spell. This is a 2nd level spell, but it's another one of those damage plus control spells. And the cool thing about this spell is when you upcast it, instead of doing more damage, it targets an additional creature. I believe it's against an intelligence save, and if they fail, they take a little bit of damage, and they can use an action or a bonus action on their turn and not both. Overall, great thing to have to control a group of enemies, especially if you're using a damage per round concentration type spell. At level 13, we are a Bard 11, which means we get to learn our first 6th level spell. And due to the nature of our multiclassing, we also get a 7th level spell slot here. I would take the Mass Suggestion spell. This is an incredibly powerful non-concentration spell that can potentially end an encounter with the right suggestion into the enemy's heads. Say, go home, it is time for dinner, and all your enemies might just run off and leave you alone. Overall, very cool and very powerful spell and a wonderful thing to have. But at level 13, it is time for our next tactics report. So what has changed since last time? Well, we've gained our 5th level or lower magical secrets. We've gained a 7th level spell slot, as well as 5th and 6th level spells. We've got our core damage per round spell now of animate objects, and our charisma is capped at 20. So, in terms of our plans, our support plan is to use either Bless or Polymorph. Our control plan is to use either Confusion or Slow as our concentration spell. And our damage per round spell is to use animate objects against those enemies that aren't resistant to non-magical damage, and Spirit Guardians with telekinetic if they are resistant. We're going to continue to use our non-concentration spells as needed, and our Griffin Buddy will also attack our main target. So, in terms of defensive tools, we now have a 5th use of our bonus action Blade Ward per long rest, and we've added Polymorph to our pretty expansive list of skill and utility tools. Our damage per round plan, in the first round, we're going to upcast animate objects to level 7. So we're going to animate 14 of our sharp, dangerous objects. And then we'll use our bonus action to command them to attack. Now, one of the cool things here is this bonus action can be a pretty simple thing like kill my enemies. And on future turns, we can use a bonus action to provide a little bit more direct control if we want. But if you use the right command, it should be relatively fire and forget, and you won't have to command them every turn with your bonus action. Our Griffin is also going to attack every round. And then in round 2 and beyond, we're going to fire off our Ray of Frost and use our bonus action as needed. We have a lot of things we can do, whether it's our Tempestuous Magic Flight or our Telekinetic Shove or just handing out Bardic Inspiration. Obviously, continue to use your non-concentration spells as needed. And in a real game, you're probably not firing off cantrips every turn. You probably should be casting your spells like Cautious Mind Whip, Ralathim Psychic Lance, or Synaptic Static, and that kind of a thing. In terms of our damage numbers, our Ray of Frost has a plus 10 to hit now and does 3d8 cold damage. Our Griffin has a multi-attack with its claws and its beak. Each of those attacks has a plus 6 to hit, and they deal 1d8 plus 4 piercing and 2d6 plus 4 slashing damage, respectively. We have 14 animated objects, each of them with a plus 8 to hit, doing 1d4 plus 4 slashing. And our spell save DC at this level is 18. So, against a creature with an armor class of 10 and no bonus to their saves, we would do 118.9 damage per round. And against an enemy with an armor class of 17 and plus 7 to their saves, it would be 76.5 damage per round. And since last time, this is an increase of 173% against the lower armor class, or 75.4 points, and an increase of 46.6 points, or 156% against the higher armor class. And our damage has more than doubled here. A lot of this is just due to the nature of how powerful animated objects is. And compared to our other damage per round builds at this level, we are actually ahead of a lot of them, especially against the lower armor class and about middle of the range against the higher armor class. Some of our key winners here are things like our Hedge Trimmer, Grapple and Drag on Spike Growth build, or our Herald of Vengeance, Vengeance Paladin smiting with sneak attack and that kind of thing. As well as we are definitely very behind our full Bladesinger build, the Stone Singer, at this level. Again, if you want to check out any of those other builds that I've mentioned, the link to my build spreadsheet is in the description of this video. All right, at level 14, we are a Bard 12, and this means that we get our next ability score increase or feat. Now, I'm going to take the Resilient Wisdom feat on this character to bump our Wisdom to 14 and give us proficiency in that save. Now, if your DM has given you a powerful magic casting focus that you might hold in one hand, like say a staff or something like that, I would honestly consider getting the Warcaster feat, potentially even earlier, just so you could hold that and your shield and still cast some spells, specifically spells that require a somatic component but don't require a material component. It also gives you advantage on your concentration saves, which is nice but not required. On this character, again, I'm not assuming that we have that, so I like Resilient Wisdom quite a bit here, especially as this save is targeted a lot at higher tiers. We don't get to learn any new spells here. but continue to retrain your spells as is needed for your character. At level 15, we are Bard 13. This means our Song of Rest bumps up to a D10. We're up to 8th level spell slots due to the nature of our multiclass, and we get our first 7th level spell. I'm going to take the Force Cage spell here. This is a very powerful non-concentration control spell, and it's just a wonderful tool to have. And I've talked about this a lot in other builds, but this is a very, very, very good spell. At level 16, we are a Bard 14. This means that we get the Bard capstone, which is called Peerless Skill, which lets us use our Bardic Inspiration dice to enhance our own skill checks. So we can now be even better at those things that we were already fantastic at. We also get the next round of Magical Secrets, which can now be 7th level or lower spells. And there's one core one that I want, that is the Simulacrum spell. I have used this before on my Stonesinger build, as well as on my Dark Stranger Whispers Bard build. This basically gives us a copy of ourselves. Now, if you use this spell cleverly, the copies, so each character can only have one simulacrum, but you can make a simulacrum of yourself and then have your simulacrum cast simulacrum on you, and so they have a simulacrum, and you can kind of repeat that chain indefinitely so long as you have enough material components. This is, I think, would be largely frowned on by a lot of players and a lot of DMs, and for the sake of my math, I'm going to assume that we just have a single one, but I will kind of talk about what the numbers are if we do not have this spell. The other spell I'm going to take is going to be the Globe of Invulnerability spell, just as a kind of a way to further protect ourselves and our party from enemy casters. And honestly, pick whatever you want and whatever you need for your character and your party. All right, and finally at level 17, we are a Bard 15. So our Bardic Inspiration dice bumps up to a D12. Power of our cantrips increase. And we also get to learn another spell here that can be of 8th level or lower. I'm going to take the Resurrection spell on my character because we haven't had, a Bring Back to Life spell yet. If you needed this sooner, you could absolutely grab it a long time ago. And we also get our 9th level spell slot here. It is now time for our final tactics report here at level 17. So what has changed since last time? Well, we've gained our 7th level or lower magical secrets, namely Simulacrum. We now have a 9th level spell slot and our 7th and 8th level spells, potentially. In terms of our support plan, we can use Bless, Polymorph, or Globe of Invulnerability. For our control plan, we can use Confusion or Slow with our concentration, and we have that non-concentration Force Cage spell. Our damage per round plan is still Animate Objects against those enemies that are not resistant to non-magical damage, and Spirit Guardians if they are. And then we're going to continue to use our massive suite of non-concentration damage and control spells, and our Griffin is still going to fight for us. Additionally, we also have the Simulacrum, so they can potentially do one of the other plans or the same plan, and they are potentially very powerful if you are allowed to use this spell. In terms of our defensive tools, we now have a 6th use of our bonus action Blade Ward, and we've added Globe of Invulnerability. We've also added a Bring Back to Life spell and Resurrection to our suite of skill and utility options. Our damage per round plan hasn't really changed. We're going to cast Animate Objects at the highest level we can, so level 9, which will give us 18. We'll, give them that general command to attack, and our Griffin is going to fight with us, and then we are going to fire off our Ray of Frost and use our bonus action as needed in future rounds. Our Simulacrum, for the sake of these numbers, is going to copy everything that we're doing, so we'll have a second set of animated objects for a total of 36 of them. In terms of our damage, we're now up to a plus 11 with 4d8 cold on the Ray of Frost. Our Griffin's damage hasn't changed, and we now have 18 instead of 14 animated objects, dealing 1d4 plus 4 slashing damage with a plus 8 to hit, and our spell save DC is 19. So, against an enemy with an armor class of 10 and no bonus to their saves, we would do 297.2 damage per round. And if their armor class is 18 and their save bonus is plus 8, we would do 179 damage per round. Now, without the Simulacrum, these numbers are halved, so 148.6 and 89.5. And since last time, this is an increase of 150% against the low armor class and 134% against the higher armor class. Now, without the Simulacrum, these are only increases of 25 and 17%. So obviously, a lot of that damage has come from the fact that there are now 2 of us. Now, compared to my other builds at this level, we are actually in 3rd place overall against both armor classes, and the only builds that are ahead of us are other simulacrum builds, so namely the Stone Singer, our Full Blade Singer, and the Dark Stranger, our Whispers Bard. All right. And yeah, I am pretty overall very happy with this character and kind of how we have this massive package of control, damage, and support that we can use, all wrapped up into a very powerful skill monkey character that can fill multiple roles out of combat as well. All right, so it is time to summarize what is the overall score of this character. Now to get this, I take all of our numbers at all of our damage reports and I average them into one number. And for this character, that is a 98.4. This is very good. This is 4th overall. Again, we are behind our other 2 simulacrum builds, and we are also behind overall our hedge trimmer, who grapples and drags on spike growth. That said, without the simulacrum, this build is a 68.7, which is a little bit better than my fighter baseline builds, but not as good as my other dedicated damage per round builds that use spells, like our Living Anvil, Spirit Guardians, Shredder, Cleric build. Now, if I was going to take this version of the build to level 20, I would absolutely do Bard 18. This is going to give us a 9th level Bard spell, as well as the 9th level Magical Secrets, which we are 100% using to snag Wish and another spell. We would also get another feat here, so that could be your Warcaster or another Resilient. You could also use something like Inspiring Leader. There are a lot of cool things that you could pick to fill the role that your character needs to fill. Now, I want to talk a little bit about alternative Sorcerer and Cleric subclasses. So in terms of Sorcerer, the best ones, in my opinion, are probably going to be Aberrant Mind or Lunar Sorcerer. These give us spells that are already on my core list that I want. Aberrant Mind is going to give us Mind Sliver as well as Dissonant Whispers, and Lunar is actually going to give us Shield, so we can, among 2 others. So we can potentially use these to kind of expand our repertoire of spells. I originally wanted to use Divine Soul on this build because I just love Divine Soul. But one of the problems there is I wanted to take more than one level to kind of fix some of our known spells, and that would block us out of potentially getting to Bard 18 by level 20. But honestly, any Sorcerer can potentially work, but I love the evasiveness that Storm Sorcerer gives us with Tempestuous Magic. In terms of Cleric subclasses, I think Order Cleric, to be able to allow our powerful martial allies to attack and weaponize their reaction, is very good. Peace Cleric, to give out a basically concentration free bless on top of everything else that we're doing, is amazing. And if you, again, wanted to lean heavier into healing, Life Cleric is great. And if you wanted to lean heavier into kind of defending your party, the Warding Flare out of Light Cleric is also very, very good. Now, how does this character compare to just someone who is a pure lore bard? And you can absolutely do something similar without these multi-class dips. You're going to be missing the armor proficiency out of Cleric, though you can solve this with the moderately armored feat, although that won't be until level 4 at least. You're going to be missing the Constitution saves out of Sorcerer. You can solve this again with Resilient Con, but again, that's another delay to your potentially bumping your Charisma. You're also missing those defensive spells, so Shield and Absorb Elements out of Sorcerer, and I really like to have those. You're also missing kind of those good Charisma-based blasting cantrips that we can get out of Sorcerer. So in a way, this is a lore bard with a couple extra steps, but it's just 2 small 1-level dips, and in my opinion, makes for a very effective overall character that can fill any role in the party. I just love the flexibility and versatility that this build provides. You can pick the spells that your party needs, and you can pick the skills that your party needs. Especially if you have a party that isn't very many people, or you have a larger party but a lot of people have kind of gravitated toward the same role. Usually that happens with dealing damage. This is the kind of character that can cover a lot of the weaknesses of the party. Because I have Pass Without Trace from being an Earth Genasi, I can fortify the party's stealth. I can fortify skill checks. I myself am probably good at 2 or 3, or if not 4 different kind of core skill areas out of combat. And additionally, this is a character that is durable. We can support, and we can deal damage, and we can control potentially more than one of these or all of them at the same time. And that is something that I just find fantastic about this build. And honestly, this is a build that I would not be afraid to go with blind into a party, not knowing what any of the characters are going to be. Now, one last thing I want to mention. You probably would not be firing off your cantrips every turn in a real game. I think more often than not, you would be using your spells to fire off, your damage plus force movement or your damage plus control spells, and we have a lot of those. And so your actual damage that you're going to output is probably going to be a little higher because you are not going to be using cantrips on most turns. So thanks for watching. This has been my Arbiter of Knowledge build and the first build in the Dark template. So what did you think? Have you, played a Lord Bard? Please let me know about it in the comments. And if you liked, this Dark template, please let me know. And if the feedback is good, I plan on using this for, more videos in the future. Once again, my name is Nathan. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.